Do you know how to show number signs in Python? Here you can see this is the output that I get. Do you know how to display the plus and the minus? Let's explain that with f-strings in Python. Here you can see f-strings are a way to incorporate some sort of expression in your code. So here you can see that I've got a variable which has the number 45 and a negative variable which has the number minus 55. Both are variables, they're just what I have named so. Here you can see that to get the 45 plus, I have to use this plus symbol. So with f-strings, whatever you put in, these curly braces is actually an expression. This could refer to a variable. This could refer to an addition expression that you may have added to your code or any other calculation in Python. The important thing to notice here is you've got my var, which is the variable name. Then after this is important, the colon is the separator between your expression and the formatting that you want to apply. Now, these are number formatting. So what we want to display is, we want to display for the numbers a positive sign or a negative sign. So to do that, you just add a plus. By adding a plus, what it will do is, if the number is positive, it will display the positive sign next to it. If it's negative, then it will display the negative sign. So here, if I change this variable to the -1 and show you that, and you can see that you've got plus 45 and minus 55. Now, if I remove the plus from here, so that's the formatting. So the next two sentences we'll talk about is the formatting indicator. You can only have 3 different types of formatting. Those would be the plus, the minus, or the space character. So these are 3 options that you can use. By having nil plus, minus, or a space character, you can see it just displays the number 45. By having a plus, you can see it adds a plus. By using minus, so minus is the default one. You can see it also doesn't display the sign of the number. It only displays it if it's a negative number, so by using minus here, you can see the negative still has it. By removing the negative sign, by default negative will be applied. So the other one I want to demonstrate is the space character, so you can see there are no spaces here. But if I use the space character, rather than adding a plus or a minus, what it does is it adds a space. Here as well, if I add a space, if the number is positive, essentially it adds a space. But if the number is negative, we do have a space here. You can see the dot there. It will actually keep the minus sign. So the takeaway from this is if you want plus to be displayed, then add a plus. If you only want negatives to be displayed, you can leave that blank, or you could add a minus. But if you want a space character to be used as a filler or a padding, then you can use the space character, and for positives, it will add a space. For negatives, it will keep the negative sign. How to group numbers in Python with f-string. Do you know how to add the thousand separator or use underscore as the separator? If not, then pay attention right now. Here you can see I have a variable. The variable holds a very large number, and what I want to do is I want to add, when I print it to the user, I want to add in the thousand separator. I can add a comma over here. And the way this works is, as you know, f-string has an f at the beginning of your string, so this is my value. So this is my value is my string that incorporates a variable that I want to be formatted in a specific way. So you add the variable name, then a colon. This is important, and then after that, you can add in a comma. Now there are 2 types that are acceptable and built into Python, one which is the comma and the other one is the underscore, so these are the only 2 that are allowed as the grouping characters. You cannot, for example, use a random one such as the @ symbol or the dot. You cannot do that, so you have to use either the underscore or the comma. So here running this, you can see by adding a comma, my number has the thousand separator. Now if I were to remove the comma, you can see my number is just printed as I had it in my variable. By just changing it to a comma, it adds that. Now you can use an underscore. By using an underscore, it will do the same thing, but put an underscore where the comma is. And remember, these are the only 2 that are allowed in f-strings, so you cannot put a random character. It also works with any decimal, so you can see here I've got a decimal number, and the more specification is that we want this number to be 2 decimal places. So that's why you see 2 decimal places. If I change that to, for example, 1 decimal place, then you can see that it does 1 decimal place here. And again, you can use a comma. Now notice this is before the dot. The reason the dot is there is what you want after the decimal point. So the relevant formatting will only apply on this side, which is before the dot. So you cannot add if you had a large number like this. So if you had that number, you cannot add a comma on this side and expect this to work. you will get an error here. So the comma only works before the decimal place. This is important, so remember the formatting specifier is your variable name, and then you put an a colon after that if everything is to do with formatting. If you're not sure how these work, watch my full episode on this where I explain how to get to grips with the F-string formatting mini language that you need to learn. But I hope you found this useful. Just remember for simplicity that either a comma or an underscore is allowed. And if you have a decimal, then it's before the decimal point. String length and membership in Python. Do you know how to check the length of a string, or search for a particular letter in a string, or if the letter doesn't exist? If not, then watch this video. Here I have a variable. The variable holds a text which is string data type. So to get the length, all you need to do is wrap the len function around the variable name. By doing that, you can see that we get it a length of 6. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 characters. And then you can see here we want to search if the letter P exists in the text. So all you do is you type in what you're searching for and then the text or the variable that you want to search within. So in this case, we want to search in this variable that holds the word Python. So does P exist and returns true or it returns false? So here you can see you can do it the reverse way. So Z is not in this text. So Z doesn't exist. It doesn't, so it returns true. So this is the not operator. What you can do is if I change this to a lowercase p, then what you'll see is since Python is case sensitive, it says P doesn't exist even though it exists over here. So in order to search P, the lowercase one, and you don't care about casing, you can to your text variable, you can convert it to lowercase. So that's just by changing it to lower like this. And then it will search and say P does exist. Now if you were to then do an uppercase P, you will see that it turns to false to say that actually P doesn't exist. Now what you can do is if you have variables, so in here you could have this as my search string and you can see it's an uppercase P. You can also search for that variable. So rather than manually typing the text in, you can actually type in the variable search. And then what it will do is you can convert that to lower as like this. And then you will always get the accurate match of the search string and the text string. Both of them you're converting to lower before checking the membership. And you can do the same for the not an operator. So to make this a not, then what you do is just add the word not in here. Remember this is lowercase since Python is case sensitive. So here you can see that we now get false, but you can remove that and it would still work. So just remember use the not and in. Very simple to remember. To search between two strings for membership, you can get the length of a string by just wrapping it with the length method around your variable name. The length method also counts spaces, so if you add a space, you can see it's now 7 characters. So spaces are counted by the length method. How to use escape characters in Python. Do you know about the backslash characters in Python? Do you know how to get 2 backslashes or 1 backslash printed in your string? Let's take a look at the backslash escape character in Python, which is very important and common, so you definitely need to understand it. So here I have a string hello, and I want to split hello and the word into 2 separate lines. The backslash character you can use as something where you want to add in that unique character. So here we want to add a new line break between hello and word. You add a backslash. If you don't add a backslash, then you can see it will just simply print hello word. But by simply adding in a backslash n, what you can do is you can separate them into 2 lines, and then character is treated as a new line character rather than as something that Python would actually print. You can do the same thing with the tab, so tab is with the letter T. Now again, if you remove the backslash, then essentially what you get is just the T space. But if you want that printed as a tab, then you have to use the backslash and the T. And then that would add a tab space in your printout. You can. If you want the actual backslash character to display, it may be hard to display a backslash if it's an escape character and you only had one of them. You can see it would print that backslash character for you. But if you wanted 2 backslashes, then you have a problem because it's not printing the 2 backslashes over here. Running this actually didn't do anything, so instead you have to escape that again. So backslash over here. Then you can see now we have 2 backslashes. So if you want another one, a third one, you've got to do backslash again, and that would give me 3 backslashes. So by having just one, it will actually print it. By having two, you can see that it only prints one. But if you have a third one, you can see that it prints two. So there are multiple ways of dealing with this, but just remember, if you're not getting the right output, play around with the backslashes like this. As you can see, adding a third gives you 2. Adding a fourth if you still gives you 3. So this is how it's working. And then if you want to add a special character, such as a quote within a quote, you can see the string begins with a double quotation mark. If you want to escape the character there, you just add a backslash there, and that would give you high in quotation marks. If you were to remove the backslash, of course that does not give you the intended outcome. This actually gives you an error. So, by escaping the quotation mark characters, whenever you need to do something strange or include a strange symbol and it's not working, try to incorporate a backslash as the escape character and see if that works. At this point you might be wondering, can I use a forward slash? For that reason, it just gives the normal character, so it didn't have any effect and it didn't treat the next letter after it as having any special meaning. So by adding a forward slash, it does nothing. Just make sure yours is a backslash. File paths and the annoying escape character in Python. Are you super confused about file paths and how they work in Python? Why do we have to have 2 backslashes, sometimes 1 backslash, sometimes you see the R character, sometimes you do not see it? So let me explain all this in this video. When you have a file path in Python, when you think that you can just add quotation marks around the file path, that will not work. So here you can see that we get a Unicode codec error. This is because the backslash is an escape character in Python. It lets you escape the next character in line. So here, backslash U actually has a special meaning around to do with Unicode escaping. So you're getting a failure to say that it can't decode the character correctly. So the next part is, well, how do you have a form flow file path then? So here, let's say you do want the path to be printed out, you can include double backslashes. By doing this, you can see that we get the output, which is the correct file path. Now, if you had a file path ending with a slash over, here, you can see that that's printed out correctly. Now, interesting part is a lot of people use R, which is row string, and you only have to include 1 backslash. Doing this, you can see you get the correct path shown here. And you might be then wondering, okay, if I add a backslash here, will that still work? What do you think? Is this going to fail? Let's try it. And here, you can see that this has failed even though I have added the row string indicator. This is because Python is treating last backslash as an escape character. So in a row string, if you have a backslash, then you have to add in another backslash, and that would give you this output. But that's not what you want. You only wanted 1 backslash. So you wanted it like this with 1 backslash, but this won't work. So you must either remove this backslash over here, like that, and then this would work with the row string. Triple quotes is another way, or the opposite quote. So if you have a quotation mark in your string, then you must use the outer quotation mark as double quotes. So it's fine. It's printed here, and if you have double quotes inside your string, then you must use single quotes outside your string. Here you can see that you can use triple quotes. And this will work with double quotes inside and single quote at the same time. So triple quotes in these situations. With triple quotes, you can also insert new lines, so multi-line output. And you can see new line characters are printed, so that's another useful thing with triple quotes. The row string has an interesting use, which is you can print the escape character itself. So when you do row or at the beginning of the string, you can actually print the escape character. If you didn't do that, then essentially you would end up with a new line character like this. So remember, if you want your file path to have backslash at the end, just always use the 2 backlashes, and that works in all situations for file paths. Splitting and joining strings in Python is easy. Do you know what this code has done? Do you know how to do this? Replace spaces in your string with dashes. Let's have a look to see how we do this. You know that I like explaining things clearly. So let's start right at the beginning. I have a variable that is called sentence. This variable holds a string. This string has spaces. So if I highlight this, you can see where there ever is a dot over here. That's a space character, so Python is fun with spaces. Normal English sentence. If you want to split this up into multiple words, then you can using your variable name. It has a built-in function called split, and the split function takes in a parameter. This parameter you can see is the same as the string that is used in programming. This parameter is the same as the string that is, so what it will do is it will split your string by the space character, and it will store the results of that here in this variable. This variable, when you print it out, confirms that your string sentence has been broken up into multiple parts. And you might be wondering what this is. This is a list. A list is like a shopping list. It holds multiple items separated by a comma. Okay, at this point, you do have your string split out. Then what you can do is you can replace the space character that you originally had with something else. And using the join operator, you're saying add on a string. So just imagine a bead situation. You have lots of beads that need to go on a string. So you add that on there, and you want to join all the words in your list over here with that space character that was originally there, and you want to replace it with a dash. So what this will do is it will add the dash. Python dash is dash fun. Now, when it did the splitting, it got rid of the space characters. So here in the list, it doesn't actually have the space character included. So it had got rid of the separator. So if you had separator as originally as a dash, for example, and I put in there, I want to replace that. What you will see will happen is running this. The dash has been got rid of and you can then add the space back in. So now it's the reverse. So the dashes or the hyphens have been got rid of and now you want to add spaces. So this will be very useful in your journey in Python, knowing how to split something and then join it back with something else if you need to. Finding and counting strings in Python. Do you know how to find a character? Count how many times a character happens. Find the second instance of occurrence of a character. Let's understand these functions to do this. Here I have a variable called text. The text variable holds the word banana. I want to find the letter in the string banana. I want to find the first instance. By default, if I run this, you can see that I get the output to say 1. This is the position where the letter first occurs. The first letter is B, which is a position now because Python is index based. And then the next position is 1, and that's the output that we get here. Now the second parameter to this function is the start position. So by default, it starts at position 0, but let's say I wanted to start at position 2, which would be 0, 1, 2. So that would be from the letter N onwards. And you can see that the next letter after the N, it does fine. And it says its position is 0, 1, 2, so that would be from the letter N onwards. And you can see that the next letter after the N, it does fine, and it says its position is, so why not use that way? So there we go. So from the previous example, you see from position 4, and now it's match here. So from position 4, we have P whistle next. The next, we have question who's here. We have perspective CLGMTLJ1. So it's actually entering the expression also to these bars here. So we have say list, where you will see a number of numbers here. So the reason I have chosen this, so if you have an invalid character, like the letter Z, it will cause your code to error. So you will get value error substring not found, so index is a bit more strict. While if you have invalid character in here that doesn't exist, your code will not error. Instead, it will return a -1 if it cannot find a string, while with index, it will actually fail your code. Count function basically counts how many times a certain letter occurs. So within here, you can see it occurs 3 times, and this is the output we get. You can actually search for a particular combination, so you can search for the word and you can see and happens twice within the banana string that we have. Once over here, and once over here. The last thing I want to talk about is the count. The count returns that there are 2 instances of AA within the string. And for beginners, you might be confused. It doesn't double count. So here AA here and AA there are. It doesn't count overlapping AAs. So, for example, there's AA here, and then you might say there is AA here, and then you might say actually there is AA here. This doesn't do that. So, it does not overlap using the count function. I hope you found this useful. Find multiple instances of strings in Python. Do you know what this code is doing? You probably have no idea, but it is very useful. Let me explain it very clearly to you. Here I have a variable called text. It has the word banana in it. So that's a string. Then I have an empty variable here. This will be of list type. List type is by these square brackets. And if you think what is a list? List is just a list is a shopping list. Could be to-do list. It has multiple items in it such as clean, cook, eat. So these are the 3 items, for example, in this list, but we will leave this as empty because we want to add something to our list. So it's like getting a piece of paper ready to go. Next we have a for loop. And here where the syntax gets confusing. But let me make it clear. What we want to do is, we want to loop through this text. But during the loop we want to use this class over here, which is Enumerate. This has a constructor that takes in something that you can iterate through or loop through. In this case we want to loop through each character of this string. So b and so on. What this does is when this calls back, so when you run this code, the function will return back 2 things. One which is the position of the character and the character itself. So it will go the character is b and the position is 0. Next letter a and then the position is 1. Next letter n and the position is 2. Because it's 0 index, so we start with 0, 1, 2. Next we will check here. So that's where we're getting 2 variables at I is for the position and the character. So the first variable that's returned by this function is I. So this function returns 2 variables essentially. And the second one is the position and the character. So the first variable that's returned by this function is I. So this function returns 2 variables essentially. And the second one is the character within the string. So here we will check if the character is equal to A. If it is, then we will append the position of that character to our list over here. And then we will print the position. So if I run this, and you can see the output we get is 1, 3, and 5. So the first occurs here at position 1. Then we've got position 2, which is the letter N. And then we've got position 3, which is the letter A. And then 4 is the position for letter N. And then we've got it as the last position, which is position 5. So here that's the output that we got over here. This method essentially returns 2 variables, and here we're just using the position equal with the first variable and then the actual object, which in this case is an individual character, and then we're checking if the character is equal to A. If it is, then we append the position, and that's how we find out multiple instances of something in a string. I hope you found this explanation easy to understand. Enumerate and comprehension shorter syntax in Python. Do you know what this code is doing? You probably have no idea and you're a bit lost. You're confused, so let me make it easy for you to understand this. You probably remember my last video where I had this string. It was the word banana, as you can see over here, and what you had over here was I was creating a loop and I was checking if the character existed and I was appending all the positions I find the letter A into my list over here into this variable. But this is very awkward looking code. It is easy to understand, but it's long. I wish you could do this in one line, and this is where comprehension comes in. Comprehension basically goes, rather than having this append method for a list, you don't need to do this. What I will do is I will basically using list comprehension do the append automatically for you. So here we declared the variable and then we did a for loop. You can do that in one line using the syntax. And let me tell you how to read it. First, before we go to that enumerate method over here, it's like class, but we'll say it's a method. It returns 2 outputs, one which is the position of where a character occurs and the character itself. So we passed in our text. So each item in the text has a position and the letter itself. The position and the letter itself and so on. So for first letter the character is B and the position is 0. Then the next one it's A and the position is 1. So it's 0 index based, and then we check if the character is equal to A, and then we simply take that position and put it and store it, so we append it. So to read this code over here, you say the same thing. Enumerate returns 2 things. It returns I, the position, and the character. So the first I, you read it from left-hand side. Take the I from here, because this function returns 2 objects, the position and the character. So we only want to take I and store that into the list. So basically do the append. But before you do that, check if the character is equal to A. So because this returns, so it's looping through. So this syntax pretty much, you can see if I highlight it, there is the same, so that is the same syntax. It's just in one line over here, and it might seem confusing. The if condition is on the same line too, so the next part has essentially been merged into one. And this if char is equal to A, that's the character. Then basically it returns back I over here, and that's the position. Now, when you run this, you can see we get the same output, so our variable has been populated with positions. But we could easily populate it with the characters, so if we wanted just the characters, then we can just change that to char. As soon as we do that, you can see it's populated with A's in here. If you want both of them, then just put it in a tuple. So as you know, a tuple. So you can say actually I want the character and the position over here. And then you can see we got tuples. First day at position 1, then next one at position 3, and then position 5. And that's all there is to list comprehension. Let me know in the comments if I've missed anything where I could have explained